Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unshackled for Life. We're unlocking prosperity and liberating wealth. I'm your host, John Green. And in today's episode, I'm going to share the philosophies of the four people who have influenced me most in my financial journey. All right. So, we all need some guidance when it comes to doing just about anything. You kind of want to have mentors and you want to have people that you can learn from, teachers, masters, that you can kind of learn and take a little bit from what they know and then apply it to your own life. So these four individuals, I give them credit for teaching me different things about personal finance and also playing an integral role in my financial journey towards financial freedom. All right. So the four people we have Dave Ramsey, Dr. Boyce Watkins, Dr. Claude Anderson, and Hope Bryant. All four have, I've learned different things from each, and each of them play a major role in my current, philosophies and mindsets when it comes to financial freedom. And, they're kind of the people I've learned the most from to help me even create Unshackled for Life. All right. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. For each one, I'll kind of give a few minutes for each one, just kind of explaining what they do, what I've learned from them, how I came across them, what I've gotten from them. And then I want to, I'll share all of their websites and things so that if you want to look more into each of them, you can. And, and I encourage you to do so, quite honestly. I mean, I'm a nerd, so I love learning. And, if you're looking for more people to study and more people to learn from, these are the people who taught me. So people who I look up to with great respect. All right. So I'm going to go in the order in which I came across them. All right. So I'm going to start with Dave Ramsey. So Dave Ramsey is probably the most well known on this list. He is a national talk show radio host. His podcast numbers are legendary. And, it all comes from his idea of breaking free from debt and basically just creating a strong foundation, a strong financial freedom. One of his quotes is, "Live like no one else, so later you can live like no one else." So you kind of do all the hard work now in the beginning, paying off your debt and breaking free from debt. And then later on in life, you can basically live and give and save like you never have before because you're free. So Dave Ramsey, let me tell you how I came across him. I'd heard his name once or twice in my late 30s. I come across him. Was going to church, and someone at the church had recommended taking his Financial Peace University class. That went right over my head. I wasn't ready. And then, when I met my wife, this is true story. So when I met my wife, we were still, in the middle of dating. And one of the things I was trying to really work on at the time was my finances. So I was doing different things, trying to pay off some of my debt. I was, in my mind, I was trying to keep my checking account, trying to keep the balance above $1,000. That was kind of a personal goal I had at the time. And, I thought, as I met my wife, I could tell that she knew a lot more about personal finance than I did, and she had done much better than I did. And I was quite impressed with her knowledge of money and handling money. And I thought, let me go ahead and go read a book. So I went to Half Price Bookstore, true story, and I came across Dave Ramsey's book. He has a book called Financial Peace, and there were several of them on the shelf. There were like a lot of them. So I thought, okay, this book is either really, really good or it's really crap. So I went ahead and got 2 copies. So I bought the 2 copies. I took them, I took one back to my wife and I said, hey, she wasn't my wife back then, but I took it to her. I said, hey, I'm going to start reading this book. Would you be interested in doing a book study with me? And she said, yeah, that's cool. Let's do it. So I gave her her copy of her book and I took my copy of my book. And we started reading through the book, and we would check in, we would read a chapter a week. We would check in with each other, and talk about it, talk about what we highlighted, things like that. And it kind of became, it just kind of became a part of something we were doing. And as we got more into it, it really helped focus our conversations on money and our views of money. And in the end, at the end, before we got married, we went ahead and signed up for one of his Financial Peace University classes. And we took that. We took that at a local church, and it was good. It was good. I started listening to his podcast, and I mean, I was definitely part of the Dave Ramsey cult. All right, and I say that in a good way. It's not a bad thing to be a part of the Dave Ramsey cult. Not a bad thing at all. Um, his philosophy is basically he has the 7 baby steps. So to quickly go through them, his first baby step is to start a $1,000 emergency fund. Truth be told, I was doing that anyway, even though in my head I really wasn't doing it as a Dave Ramsey thing. It's just something where I was like, oh, okay. My goal in life right now is to keep $1,000 in the bank. And and I was able to take that step and say, hey, that's cool because that's what I'm doing. But what I did was I took my 1,000 and I put it into a savings account instead of my checking account. So now it's just over there. So save $1,000 in a emergency fund. Baby step 2 is the big step. That's paying off debt. So he recommends using the debt snowball method, where you start with the smallest balance, and you start to pay those off until you get to your final biggest balance. But by the time you get to that one, you have all of those monthly payments that you were once paying on everything, and you get to really just super focus it on that one because you've paid everything off over time, eliminating those monthly payments. And it creates a snowball effect where you're able to put more and more money towards the next bill. So as you go, you're knocking out bill by bill by bill until you have no more bills. All right, in the terms of in the sense of loans and credit, stuff like that. All right. Baby step 3 is basically you're creating your real emergency fund. So the real emergency fund is to put 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses to the side. All right. So now you're basically ensuring or laying a foundation of having financial security, because now when an emergency shows up, you're prepared for it. It's not really an emergency anymore. If you watch previous episodes, I talk a lot about emergency funds. They are game changers in your whole financial psyche. Like things just start to act different and work different when you have that emergency fund. Steps 4, 5, and 6, he says to do them at the same time. So step 4 is put 15% of your income towards retirement investment. Step 5 is start putting money aside for your kids' college. And step 6 is pay off your house, mortgage, whatever you have there. And then baby step 7, which is, once your mortgage is paid and you have no more debt, then, then you're on baby step 7, where you get to live like no one else, so later you can live and give like no one else. So you can really start to live a great life without debt. All right. And a life of financial peace, where you're at peace with your finances. And there are many other things that I've learned from Dave Ramsey, especially listening to his podcast. When I would listen to his podcast, it would amaze me, because I kind of grew up thinking, white people have it made, right? Like they don't, yeah, you got the poor white people, but besides from them, most white people have it made. And I really thought that until I started listening to his show, and I started to realize, oh damn, they do the same messed up stuff that I see happening in the black community, on a different scale in some cases, but still, it's still the same level of mistakes. You see things like, paying too much for cars, paying too much for a house. People having no money when they need to have money. So they buy a house and realize, oh damn, I can't afford to pay for the air conditioning. What do I do? Do I sell everything off? Do I go into more debt? Whatever. And, and listening to his podcast really, it's not that misery loves company, but it definitely shows that there's a lot of people out here making some messed up financial moves. Okay. Like it's normal. It is totally normal. And normal sucks, because most people are living these normal lives full of debt, full of, being over leveraged on debt, and just finding themselves in need of relief from that debt. So, those are some of the things I've learned from him. What else do we have here? If you're, what I would say is, if you're just starting your financial journey, I will say this was Dave Ramsey was a great place to start. That was wonderful. Like, going through his baby steps, they were good. I'm not on baby step 7. I want to be clear about that. I still carry a mortgage, still working on the mortgage. I'm not in a rush to pay it off. This is one thing I kind of disagree with him on. He's like, well, go ahead and pay it off. You don't want to just keep that loan laying around. You're paying interest on it. Yeah, that's true. But, I think I'd rather, with my interest rate being very low after I refinanced, thanks to him, because he recommends a 15-year fixed mortgage. And I did that during the pandemic when those interest rates were rock bottom. So that worked out well. So now that I have that super low interest rate, I'm not in a rush to pay it off. It's okay. It's okay. And I'm allowed, it gives me the freedom to invest more of my money towards things that will hopefully pay higher interest. All right. Now, after kind of getting to to steps 4, 5, and 6 with Dave Ramsey, I started to do more reading. And one of the, and then the next person who I really came across that really spoke to me in my soul was Dr. Claude Anderson. So Dr. Claude Anderson is, besides being a college professor, he is, he's known for his book PowerNomics. He's also written some other books like Black Labor, White Wealth. Recently he wrote a book about history, and that's a good book. Haven't read it, but I've heard bits and pieces of it, and it seems like a great book. But I read his book PowerNomics, and I need to kind of give you a little bit of a backstory on this. So with PowerNomics, Dr. Claude Anderson is basically laying out a plan for Black America, and it's a plan towards financial freedom. Now, I first came across Dr. Claude Anderson way back in like the year 2000, 2001, something around then. And I remember being at SO1 Books in Los Angeles, and I went to hear him speak. He was talking about his book, PowerNomics, which he had just written. And, you know, and it was cool listening to him. Now, mind you, I was, probably only like 25, 26 at the time. And actually, I'll say 24, 25 at the time. And, I was still young, not married, not, no kids, nothing like that. No real responsibilities except for, working and paying back all my student loans and all of that. That's kind of what I was focused on. And I wasn't ready for his message. But, thinking back, damn, it was such a great message. So, the way when I met him and I heard him talk, one of the things he was talking about was on the Black community, we do not have, we don't have systems in place. And he kind of, and some of the examples he would give were like kind of based on if you go to a Jewish community or to a Chinatown, you're going to see the community working together. You're going to see people helping each other. You're going to see them recycling dollars. And he kind of explained like, hey, that's not happening in the Black community. Here's a framework where we could do that. And he laid out this example when I heard him speak. He laid out an example of catfish, of a whole catfish industry. And he was kind of like, look, you can use some land to build warehouses. And in those warehouses, you're going to have some catfish, not ponds, but basically tanks. You're going to have tanks so you can farm the fish. So you're going to farm some catfish. That's going to be Black owned. Then you're going to have a Black trucking company that's going to transport these catfish to different markets. You're going to have Black supermarkets that'll sell these catfish. And then you'll have the Black consumer who will buy these catfish. And now by doing this, we've recycled the dollar multiple times. And, and I was like, man, okay, that's cool. That's brilliant. I can't afford any land here in California. I can't afford this. I can't afford that. Man, just over my head. And when I came across his book later, 20 years later, and sat down and read it, in his book, he basically predicted that in 20 years from then, so kind of like in the year 2020, when I was reading this book, he kind of predicted that the Black community would be in a bad spot financially, economically. The Black community would almost be broke by the year 2020. So as I was reading this book in 2020, I was sitting there thinking to myself, damn, he called it, man. Like everything in this book was just powerful. And I really wish I would have read it back then, because then I would have had like such a different way of looking at things that, of business, and a different way of how business operates. Because even though I was an economics major, my focus was sales, because that's what industry I was in at the time. So I was more about the sales side of things. And I really wasn't into the overall bigger picture. So now, once I read his book in 2020, he really inspired a new energy for what to do when I got to a better financial position. Understanding that the Black community really does need some help with financial literacy and financial understanding. And although, in 2020, I'm still fairly new, from being, getting out of debt. At that point, I think I'd only been out of debt for maybe only a year or two by that time. Actually, probably about 1 year by that point. And I was thankful, because we all know what the pandemic was like it was crazy. And luckily, it wasn't that crazy for me. It didn't have to be. I had, my wife and I had the emergency fund. We were okay, and we were able to turn that whole pandemic into a blessing. Like it turned out okay. We didn't sell off all of our retirement accounts. We didn't have to go crazy. We didn't have to dip into things to pay other people off, because we didn't have any debt except for the mortgage. And since my job was stable, I was able to continue working and continue getting a paycheck. And that helped me, stay solvent through the pandemic. So once I read the book, it actually inspired Unshackled for life. So through his book, it was able to make me think, man, wouldn't it be great if I could try to help the community by getting as many black people as I can out of debt and get them to understand that there's a whole community that needs us to do this, that we need to get out of debt. We need to take control of our finances so that we can change the community. So I thank him for that. And one of the things that I love most about Dr. Claude Anderson, he has a whole chapter dedicated to this thing called inappropriate behavior. And I strongly encourage you to buy his book. He is getting older in age, but support him. He's still, he and his family have done amazing things for the black community in the world of finance. And, continue. He needs that support. His family needs that support. But I recommend buying his book and, focus in on that chapter, inappropriate behavior. Like it really, it really, it made me chuckle. It made me think, man, this is really what's killing us. We do so many things inappropriately. And basically what he's talking about, it's not about, it's not so much about the stupidity that we see on, socially and through media and things, although that is highly stupid. But really what it is really about the financial inappropriate behavior. How a lot of times, African Americans will think, well, I'm just going to say black Americans are going to think, hey, I got to get mine, right? Before you get yours, I got to get mine. We often think in a very selfish mindset. We often don't, it's like we rather be the consumer first, owner. We don't even think about being the owner. We just want to be a consumer. We just want to own Louis Vuitton and all that other bullshit that nobody really needs. You rather just spend all that to show off to people for what? It's inappropriate. We need to have ownership mentality. We should own those companies. We should own all kinds of companies, all kinds of businesses. And there needs to be a spirit of community effort. And that's really what's at the heart of PowerNomics. And it's just a great book. It's a great read. I think that, I think every black person in America should read that book and have a better understanding of how to work as a community instead of against each other. All right. So after Dr. Claude Anderson, I then find out about this guy named Dr. Boyce Watkins. So I think I came across him somewhere on my Facebook feed. Like there was some video of him selling some sort of a conference or show he was doing or something. And I was like, man, this dude sounds great, man. He sounds powerful. Sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Very financially grounded guy. Man, sound like he's saying the same thing that Dr. Claude Anderson is saying. So I started listening to him, and then I went ahead and bought a book that I saw he was selling, and his book is The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. So I bought this book. Actually, I actually bought the digital Kindle edition on Amazon, and I read his book, and he has these 10 commandments on. It's very similar. It's very, very similar to Dr. Claude Anderson, and it makes perfect sense because he's a student of Dr. Claude Anderson. He loves Dr. Claude Anderson, and and I started listening to his podcast. He comes out. He has a daily podcast, and I listen to it almost daily on my way to or from work. And do I agree with everything he says? No. But do I agree with most of it? Yes. Do I respect everything he says? Yes. Nothing but respect. So Dr. Boyce Watkins, I actually got to meet him. I went and met him here in Houston. He came out here to talk about actually he was talking about the book 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. And he also has different courses on his Black Business School, which is another thing I strongly encourage you to check out. He runs the Black Business School, and they talk about all kinds of things, whether it's stock investing, dealing with options in the stock market, real estate, all kinds of things. His wife, is another great example of someone who's highly intelligent and doing good things. She's a psychologist, so they've kind of merged the they're two industries together. So you kind of have this psychology of of black finances, and it's pretty cool because there's a lot of stuff that being black does to you, especially when it comes to finances and financial pressures. And you know, he and his wife kind of talk about how that's okay. You really have to overcome those things to get over, to get over whatever it is you need to get over. There are things that mentally have to be right in order for for all those financial blessings to kind of come your way and for you to really shift your mind so you can reach those blessings. I hope I said that right. Sorry if I didn't, Dr. Boyce. You're still the man. But another great author, great podcaster. Um, definitely not on the scale of Dave Ramsey, but still, as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the people I'm listening to. And then last but not least, John Hope Bryant. So recently, with Unshackled for Life, I held a book study for his book, Financial Literacy for All. All right, and Financial Literacy for All is it's a great book. It's about his plan, his financial plan to as it says here. I'm just going to read the cover. It says disrupting struggle, advancing financial freedom, and building a new American middle class. So he gives a lot of ideas about basically the American economy and how, he talks a lot about good capitalism versus bad capitalism. Slavery was bad capitalism. Good capitalism is when everybody gets to benefit. I can help you, you can help me. It's a mutual thing. And through mutual capitalism, basically the black community can flourish, right? Kind of leveling the playing field, basically. If you can level the financial playing field, then, historically, black people have done pretty good once things are level and, we can kind of get in there. We usually do pretty good. So that's kind of his mindset. He has a very great organization called Operation Hope. And that's another thing I would recommend you to look into if you want to learn more about John Hope Bryant. His Operation Hope network really goes around teaching financial literacy to all. He's a kid from Compton who learned a lot and did some amazing things at a young age, not just in Los Angeles, but pretty much on a national level. He knows, he's worked with many former presidents. I think he says 5 former presidents. And, just a good mind, a brilliant mind. I just started listening to his podcast within, probably like the past 6 months or so. And I've enjoyed listening to that as well, listening to him as well. I think, he's a great mind. He thinks from a, I won't say a corporate level, but he does. Like he's thinking from a corporate suite level. And sometimes he speaks over my head because I'm not a strong business mind. I've never, this is my first attempt of trying to run my own business, and I'm new to this. So listening to him, I don't really have the financial, or I'll say corporate. I don't have the corporate financial mental capacity to really go deeper into his plans. But what I can say is from reading his book, the things that he has done and some of the examples that he has given, that he gave in the book, I thought were brilliant, and I thought they were pretty good. One thing that I know he talks a lot about, and I think it's on his website, there's a zip code thing, and he kind of talks about how if you look at the credit card of the credit score, not credit card, if you look at the credit score of a zip code, he can tell you a lot about what's going on in that zip code. And he also says, that the difference between, having a 600 credit score and a 700 credit score is basically 10 to 15 years or more life expectancy. And when you start to notice that, when you start to go deeper into that and you start to think, man, if we can help people build their credit, and if we can go community by community and basically build the credit and build opportunities, those communities can begin to grow and flourish. So I respect that thought as well. So anyways, it's been about 30 minutes. I think that's enough time. I want to thank you for watching my show. These are, again, the 4 people who have influenced me the most financially. Again, just a quick summary. You have Dave Ramsey, who really helped me get out of debt and, definitely understand the value of a strong emergency fund. And really just a good solid foundation of financial literacy and how, and how important that is to have that base so that you can do some of the more complex things like owning a business and running a business and things like that once you have that personal finance side taken care of. All right. Then there was Dr. Claude Anderson, his book PowerNomics. Again, I think it's a very important read. I think every Black person in America should read that book. Along with Dr. Boyce Watkins' 10 Commandments of Black economic power. I think we need to start thinking collectively on an economic level. This is not going to be a one person makes it and everybody gets lifted up sort of situation. This is going to be I feel like the way we get ahead in Black America is we take care of our personal finances, we get out of debt, and we understand how the money works. And once we do, we can really start making some real big power moves with money. Black Wall Street style. So from Boyce Watkins, now, John Hope Bryant, someone who's new in my world of podcast listening and reading and listening to, but still a strong, solid teacher. And I love to listen to his stories as far as things he's done. He's done some amazing things already. He has amazing connections to various people around the world. And I find those things intriguing, especially, knowing that he grew up not too far from where I grew up in Los Angeles. So just a cool thing there. All right. Anyways, those are my 4 people. So in the comments, I'd like for you to leave some comments. Let me know, who inspires you financially. Who are some of your financial superheroes? That there were others who did not make my top 4, but who are still very important. You have Chris Hogan, who was once part of the Dave Ramsey Solutions company, but something happened there. I'm not too sure what, but it didn't sound too good. But you got him, you got Chris Hogan, you got Chris Virgin, who's a young guy from Houston, who taught me about the stock market. Through him, I actually signed up for Robinhood, and I bought my first stock. So he was also an important person, on this financial journey. So shout out to him. You got other people too. There's Robert, what's his name? Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad guy. If I messed his name up, sorry. But I read a couple of his books. I even did one of his seminars like many years ago about buying properties and houses. Again, unfortunately, it wasn't the right time for me. But maybe that's something I need to go back and revisit. Maybe I will. All right, we'll check it out. We'll see. But all right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please feel free to reach out and share this episode. If you're listening via podcast, you can always watch it on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, you can always take me to go on wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Please take them. If you also have some more free time and like to reach out to me, feel free to do so. You can find me at www.unshackledforlife.com. That's www.unshackledlife.com. Thank you again, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Talk to you later.